So what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, so how do you translate that for teens and or preteens and older kids when they are in the group of peers? How do they practice, being first joining the conversation and then keep the conversation going when you are not there anymore too?
Well, first of all, the hope is that, is there a way that, like with your daughter, to have that connection? So that way of having a connection is important because progress doesn't tend to happen in a group. But there's something we do, we call them action plans. Where are you going? Who's going to be there? What could they ask? Where are you seeing these groups of peers? Is it at newspaper club? Is it at an after school activity? Is it in math class? Is it at the public pool? What are you doing in that moment? And what could they ask and what could you ask? So what you do is you work with the clinician to really kind of figure this out and talk with them so they're actively involved in this so that they can think about that. Now, the hope is that once there's some comfort and confidence with this, they can take that skill on their own out and about to do it. And that it's not the anxiety stopping them, but do they understand the social puzzle? Is there a child, and this isn't necessarily your child, but sometimes what we see, and this is where comorbidities come in, is that no matter how much comfort, no matter how much you try hard to have connection, there are a select group of kids, more than you realize, that really have a difficult time socially connecting. The social nuances are really rough. And so those kids may need further evaluation. Is there something else going on that's stopping the child from being able to interact and engage and have conversation beyond a social anxiety? And again, that's not necessarily any of your children. I'm saying this to our listeners because we are amazed how many kids we work with that end up having some of these neurodivergent challenges, such as ASD, very high functioning, that those social nuances are very rough. So I want our listeners to know that if you're working on social comfort, if you have the ability to be with these peers over and over, and they just can't get to a friendship and they've never really had that true reciprocal social interaction, even non-verbally, there may be some other things we need to look at. So I just want our listeners to know, because we're talking and we find that sometimes they don't realize that, or they blame the silence on anxiety when it might be more than anxiety.
Yeah, there could be something else
There
there.
could be something else there. And that's a comorbidity that we need to look into. But assuming it's, I need to build connection and comfort, it's trying to find those areas. So that's why clubs and activities and doing summer programs with peers. And even if it takes you as a parent, your daughter's 13 or 12, to say, hey, what's Rebecca and Sally doing this summer? Or hey, or every Thursday from 4 to 7 p.m., we're going to have like a get together. Zoe loves to bake, Sally loves to bake, whatever it could be. And we're going to have like a baking get together, or we're going to the public beach, like it's only kind of close to your house. Or you see what I mean? You yourselves have to get super creative. And I will say that when I look back over the course of my career, it's the parents that worked really, really, really hard on peer connections that made the most progress. Anything you can do to get that connection going. But it is hard as they get older because you depend on them. But I wouldn't put them in situations if they're not ready to be able to navigate with new kids, new people without a way to connect. If they're going to a camp and it's very activity based, and we've met with the director and we've educated them to say, hey, do the buddy process, ask a choice question at first, bridge up to open ended. So then they're doing that, or pair Zoe with maybe a couple kids that might be good match. And that's why doing an activity of interest is important. Are there any other thoughts or questions based on what I'm saying? I know we say a lot here.
I'm thinking about two things that were mentioned. One is being careful not to project fear and worry.
Yes.
And also the student you worked with who will be possibly traveling this summer. For the 4.5-year-old and 3.5-year-old, were born into a COVID context. And now I'm thinking about like the world ramping up this summer in terms of world events. And
wow.
how do we navigate that?
You mean with the stress involved and all those things?
Yeah. Of news headlines and things. Do we just shield our children from that, or do we?
Well, it depends on the age, right? I mean, it is very scary, the things that are happening, and we don't know what's going to really happen. And just like in COVID, it seems like there's never a dull moment in our country or anywhere in this world. I think it's like for a 3.5-year-old, a 4-year-old, I don't know how much conversation you need to have, but I would be shielding them in a way where you're not projecting your own fear. There's been some recent plane crashes, and now you're getting on a plane, and how much are you talking about that?
Yes.
It's scary for us as adults. So imagine little kids that hold it in and may manifest it by shutting down or avoiding, and they can't process it. So if your child is perseverating, like we talked about a child with germs earlier, we talked about fears of different things, that's where they do need to work with someone to talk and get their feelings out and express themselves through art, through music, through discussion, through having those moments, through puppets, through whatever it is, and working in therapy to help them if they're struggling. So really, how are they projecting that to you? There any worries and fears, and being very careful and mindful of how you talk about it with your partners and so forth and your friends. And with an older child, she is going to hear it. And so it is about, how are you feeling about this? This is a bit scary, isn't it? So you definitely want to validate what they feel, but you got to be careful. Yeah, there's no real answer to that. I mean, you can't really talk to a 3 or 4-year-old about some of these things in depth because they don't have the developmental ability to really understand it. So it's very surface, and yeah, it's hard. It's a tough time.